So we just got done watching for loops, and in this example here, there's just a little bit that we can add to it called a for else loop. And it's an interesting concept. Let's go ahead and dive right into the code. I got a few notes here for us to work with. And again, I'm in the Python folder, and inside the Python folder under lessons, I have a new file here called for else loops.py. So the for else loops, they're used to execute a block of code when the loop has finished. All right, and I'll provide you with a few examples here, and then I'll provide you with maybe a real world type of example that we can go through as a little miniature challenge to go through this. It's just to let you know that to be aware that you do have a use case for a for else loop. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with this example here. And again, we're just trying to work on the basics here. And I'm going to start off here with an example 1, and I'm going to do for I in range of 5. And right now, I just want to reharp on the basics of thinking. You as a student, as a learner of this, start thinking in your mind how this is going to play out. What is this going to do? And so as soon as I hit the run button, we get 0 through 4. So what if we would like to have a use case here of printing something, saying like loop has finished executing at the end of the loop? And if I were to simply just put it inside of the loop, that's not going to be good, because we're going to see this thing 5 times. So if I hit the run button, we can see that we see it 5 times. We don't want to see that 5 times. The loop hasn't finished running. It's still as we're going through this. So that's where we can come in here with an else. And again, something that we're looking for here is the indentation, right? If this is all the way to the left, then the else has to match it for the Python to consider this an else statement for the for loop that we're trying to execute through. So just by adding this simple else statement and having this print statement below here, if I were to now run it this time, so let me go ahead and run it, we now get 0 through 4, and now the loop has finished running. So that is a use case, just a real basic use case. Let's go ahead and move on to maybe a mini challenge. So for this mini challenge to work here, we'll go ahead and put a mini challenge. This is what I would like you to do, and we're going to do this in steps and stages. So we want to create a variable to store a Boolean value called isSuccessful. And we want to initialize that to false. Go ahead and pause the video right now and see if you're able to get that first step done that we need to do. So we're going to do isSuccessful, and we're going to set that to false. All right, that's part 1 of that mini challenge. We got many more steps to go through. Next, what I want us to do is I want us to create a for loop that iterates through a range, simulating sending message attempts. So think about what we just got done doing with 1 through 5 and it printing something. So instead of printing, let's go ahead and print out attempts. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can get it to display that. All right, well, hopefully you ended up getting that part as well. So I'm going to do the following. I'm going to do for I in range. And how many do we need? It says 3, right? Through a range of 3, and go ahead and print the message here, and that's really all I want to do for this part right here. So hopefully you ended up getting this. I'm going to go ahead and save it, run it. Sending message attempt 0, 1, 2. If we wanted to fix that, of course, we can add a +1 to this, and that way it will at least read properly. Sending message 1, 2, and 3. All right, perfect. So what I would like us to do next is put an if statement in here, because we can do an if statement, by the way, and we can say if the message is successful, go ahead and break out of the loop. So let's go ahead and put this up here, And let's code this one along together because we haven't introduced the break yet. So we can say something like this. We can say if, and then is successful. We do want to put a break, but before we do the break, we want to print that it is successful. So print message sent successfully. Now, something that we can do here to test this part out, the break part, is let's change this to true and see what happens. We only get, and if I highlight this and run this only, sending message attempt 1, so it attempts to send it, and then because is successful is set to true, it's going to break out of the loop. Notice that we didn't have to go through it over and over and over again, right? So that's pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and put this back to false to show you that if is successful is false, it's totally going to ignore the block of code from 4 through 26. So let's go ahead and run this one as well. And notice that I still get the sending message attempt 1, 2, and 3. Now this is where our final thing happens. We need to have an else block that will print 3 attempts have been made if it actually went through the entire loop process. Okay, so this is where we're going to think back in our notes. Hey, where did the else statement go? And I threw this if in here to get you thinking and remembering about indentations. Because I can put an else here, but it's tied to this if statement. I don't want it tied to that if statement. I want it tied to the for loop. So I'm going to do an else for the for, and then I'm going to come here of print 3 attempts have been made. So now if I save it, run it, let me go ahead and highlight and run it. It says 3 attempts have been made. Now here's the thing that I want you to think about is what if I change this to true? What will we see? Will we even see this part here? Let's go ahead and highlight, run it. Sending message attempt 1, message sent successfully. So again, the key to bring up and think about in this else part, this line 27, only gets executed if we've gone through the loop completely. And in this case here, it happens to be, has the loop been ran 3 times? And if it did, then it comes down here. If it did not, we used a break statement, which means we broke out of the loop. We're no longer inside of it. And we get this message here. All right. So it's just going to take a little bit of time to get used to thinking about the loops. Just know in the back of your mind, hey, if I need to break out of it, I can use the keyword break. And if I need to print out a message, or if I need to do any kind of cleanup code, as you would say, it can be handled in here once the loop has finished running. All right. So we'll see you in the next video.